I had one. Welcome back to Babbling Irons, and it's coming into open season slough where there are tons and tons and tons of links for West Ham and players. Today is no different. We have been linked with none other than Matt O'Reilly of Celtic fame. Currently interested, drawing interest from us as well as Tottenham, which isn't a surprise because he's an ex-player. Yeah, it's an ex-player for Ange Postecoglou. £25 million, as it's saying there in the article. So yeah, what are your views on this link? Is this something that you're happy with as a player, or someone that you think maybe give a swerve?
I really like this link. I think for what we want, particularly the homegrown need that we have, but also the physicality, and more importantly, his ability on the ball, I think it's a really, really good target to have. I've kind of mentioned him a couple of times on my own Twitter feed, and I know we've spoken about him on the channel, but I think one of the things that I really like about him is this is a guy who had 6 months out of football. He was without a club after MK Dons, and in that time you can tell he just worked. And I think when you're, I don't need to ramble on about all the cliches, but when you're released or you are without a club and you still make the effort and you still work to get re-signed by someone, I think that's a huge testament to a player and their attitude. And yeah, this season he's just been absolutely electric for Celtic.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. For those who don't know, Matt, the reason we're talking about Matt O'Reilly as homegrown, even though you may be going, well, he's Danish, how can he be homegrown? He's was born in England. He was at Fulham's youth academy for many a year, then went on to MK Dons, and then subsequently went on, I think, in January 2020, 21, 22. He then signed for Celtic. He's gone from strength to strength there. Obviously, he was a cornerstone of the Ange Postecoglou midfield. Bit more restricted in the Ange setup, probably a bit more on the defensive side, which obviously saw his defensive work greatly rewarded because his metrics for that year with Ange were incredible defensively. On the ball again, incredible. I believe he ended that season with 12 assists under Ange Postecoglou. Fast forward to this year, and the contribution is insane, regardless of the league. And to be doing this from central midfield and only have taken 2 penalties, the guy has 17 league goals from central midfield. Now, granted, he's playing for Celtic. I know some people may go, this is the SPL, but just take out those kind of elements and think of it in the respect of this is a central midfielder who has scored 17 goals. Not only has he got 17 goals, he has 13 assists. 3 of those assists came in the Champions League. So again, much higher quality than what you'd maybe see in the SPL. But he's been putting up some incredible numbers. And if you go on to FB Ref, which is most people will quite know from these statistics. So if we look at these now, where it's talking about the non-penalty goals and it has him in a very low percentile, that's factually incorrect because some of this data is actually missing from there. He has 17 goals, which actually puts him in the very upper echelons when it comes to percentiles. He's actually more likely in about the 90th percentile for players because of being a central midfielder or being a midfielder with 17 goals. That will be very difficult for you to find across the top 5 leagues and across the kind of any league in Europe, finding a central midfielder with 17 goals. Again, you can see 99th percentile for assists. That's because he has 13 assists this season. 30 goal contributions from central midfield is a phenomenal number. And I think the last time we saw a player that had similar goal scoring record was a certain young Thomas Souček when we signed him. I believe he was on 16 goals when we signed him from Slavia Prague. I think he also did take penalties, in fairness, but he was the last player that we signed that had a very high upturning goals. And last year, I think he only had 3 goals, was expected to score 5. However, Brendan Rodgers has unleashed him this season. And if you also look at the statistics and so on, it looks like the comparisons. It also compares him to wingers. That's how effective he has been in that left-hand side of midfield, getting crosses in, playing and drifting into those wide areas, he's been so difficult to play against this year because he is literally cropped up in left wing positions, inside channels. It's just an incredible feat from him this year.
Yeah, he's got an absolute wand of a left foot as well. And I think when you look at the assists he's got, they're not sort of what you might expect. I don't want to sound too disrespectful to the Scottish League, but I think when people think of the of goals that Celtic and Rangers score, quite often they think of, like, you know, very poor ones. And look, I'm not gonna slag off the league because it has produced some defensive gems. It's produced some great players. And if you look at the Van Dijk transition from Celtic down to Southampton and then up to Liverpool, I think it's fair to say that, you know, there is potential in that market. And
Andy Robinson is a prime example as well, coming from the Scottish League into Hull and then onto Liverpool as well. So yeah, there's a fair few examples over the years of players who come from Celtic or even Scotland. Even Wanyama, prime example, was another one who was incredible for a good period in England.
But it's the quality of his delivery into the box and the quality of the goals that he does score, which is really eye catching. You know, they're not just bobbling in. They're not easily pressing a defender and winning the ball. They are long range goals, or they are like really good bits of skillful technique. And I think
he has that Souček knack as well, doesn't he? Of just arriving in the right place. A couple of his goals are reminiscent of the goal that Souček scored against Arsenal. In fact, just seems to pop up into those right areas to get on the end of something.
And I think one of the things that, you know, the Souček comparison might scare a few people, just because they might think, oh God, you know, it's a limited player on the ball. I think one of the things that ORiley has is he's got a fantastic first touch. His technique is excellent, but it's his link-up play. It's his composure on the ball. And I think, look, I love Thomas Souček. I think he's a Swiss Army knife sort of player. You know, he's a blunt instrument and he will throw himself at everything. He will give you 100%. But he is technically limited in some areas. You know, he can score a wonder goal, but when you give him time to think, or if he's under pressure on the ball, sometimes he can just make the wrong choice, or he can, you know, he can dilly-dally and cost you. It's a contrast to ORiley, where he is so comfortable, he can turn a man, he can carry it, or he can just play a 25-yard pass and release a winger. He can release a forward. And I think a lot of people may find it a strange comparison, but he's a real mix of James Ward-Prowse and Souček. That mix of physicality and ability on the ball, mixed with set piece influence and ability to take them and contribute from them, whether it's in the taking of them or just getting on the end of them. He can have that that impact for a side. So I think it's a really, you know, it's a really good move.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed. And you know, to the point of, yeah, he is incredible on the board. If we go back to these statistics, when you look at him from a defensive point of view, again, I know people will probably point out, well, he's doing this in the SPL, and that's fair enough. However, this is also looking at him, comparing him to the big five. So, you know, he defensively, he is very resolute. He's not as good as a Souček, obviously, in the air. Not many players are. He's only 6'1", as opposed to Souček's 6'4" frame. But it's everything else that he does. It's his defensive awareness, his ability to be. I know it's probably going to sound weird because Souček is mobile in the sense he covers a lot of ground. However, when I say mobile with ORiley, it's the distance he can cover in a short space of time. He's got far more pace. He's very much more a box-to-box player. If he was to go forward, he is going to get himself back. Defensively, he's very strong. Consistently getting back and being able to outmuscle a player or to put in a good tackle to win the ball. And again, as you say, the ability to recycle possession and to maintain it, and then having that vision to create a shot, etc., is something that we desperately need. And I do feel that this is maybe a deal that we're looking at in case there is maybe movement with Souček. I do feel that it's maybe we've looked at it as this is arguably replacing Souček's goals, adding potentially more creativity, better possession, and again, still maintaining that defensive resoluteness. It does feel like it's maybe one of those deals, because I do have a feeling that if Soufal's to go, Big Tom may also think now is the time. With Moyes going, he may feel that it's also time for him as well. So it's a deal for me that makes a lot of sense if there is maybe some reservations about Souček's long-term future. However, I do think this is a type of player that you should take, and it would be amazing to gazump Tottenham and Big Ange in getting Matt O'Reilly, and I think to your point about the mentality he had to get himself back into football after essentially being out of it and being in the wilderness also shows the type of mentality he has, and he'll want to make a point if he was to come back to England to make the point of that it was wrong of teams when he was released, and that he actually is a far better player, and it's probably actually molded him into a far better player as well, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think when you see the rumored fee of around £25 million, I'm not trying to be harsh on Downs. I think if you look at, he's potentially linked with a £20 million move to Southampton. If you think it's just a £5 million step up,
yep.
For me, it's a player who's levels above Downs, and I don't mean that with disrespect.
And he's 2 years younger as well. He is younger. He's going to bring goals, defensive, defensive acumen. He's also going to bring possessional play as well. I
think it's a move that for me, I think is very easy to write off as well. Like financially for us, £25 million isn't breaking the bank. It's covered by a player sale. It will probably be covered by the likes of Kehrer and Benrahma moving on as well. So I would think this is one that we should try and move quickly for.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think it's probably a good place to leave it. We both think that he will be a great signing, technically very good, defensively resolute. He is, has this season has shown, can be a goal-scoring revelation if given the opportunities to get forward, because he is that technically good. So yeah, guys, let us know your feelings on Matt O'Reilly and the links. Are you happy with this? Do you want to see this deal go through? And would you be willing to, say, sell Flynn Downs or Thomas Souček in which to facilitate such a deal? But yeah, let us know in the comments, guys. And until next time,
come on, you Irons.